Captain Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching the stars drift past through the main screen. The ship was big, painted in dark gray metal that looked like storm clouds. It moved through space like a sleeping giant, powerful but quiet. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, checking systems and watching for trouble. The Iron Resolve was part of the Terran Defense Fleet. Humans called it the TDF for short. They patrolled the outer edge of human space, where the dangerous things lived. Pirates, slavers, and worse things that came from the dark between stars. Captain Park had been doing this job for 10 years now. He knew how to spot trouble before it found them. Bo-ram Kim sat at the communications station, her fingers dancing over the controls. She was young but good at her job. Her job was to listen to all the radio signals that flew through space. Most of them were boring. Trade ships talking about cargo, colonies asking for supplies, sometimes love letters between star systems. But today felt different. "Captain," Bo-ram said, her voice tight with worry. "I'm getting something strange on the emergency band." Park turned to look at her. The emergency band was special. Only people in real trouble used it. When someone sent a message on that frequency, it meant they were dying or worse. "Put it on the main speakers," Park said. The bridge filled with static and noise. Then a voice came through, speaking in the common galactic language. It was hard to understand because the signal was weak and broken. But Park could hear the fear in it. "This is Valen Prime. Under attack. The Korthak came without warning. They're killing everyone. Please, someone help us. Our children are..." The signal cut to static. Then silence. Bo-ram tried to clean up the recording, running it through the ship's computers. The voice became clearer. It was speaking with an accent that Park recognized. "The Velani people. They were peaceful traders who sold art and music across the galaxy. They had never hurt anyone in their entire history." "Captain," said Jae-min, Lee from the tactical station. "I'm checking our star charts. Valen Prime is 3 days away at maximum speed." Park knew about the Velani. Everyone did. They looked like tall, thin people with purple skin and big, gentle eyes. They ate only plants and spent their time making beautiful things. Their ships had no weapons. They believed that violence was wrong, even to protect themselves. "Sir," Bo-ram said, playing the message again. "I'm picking up parts we missed. They mentioned the Korthak Empire." Park's blood went cold. The Korthak were everything the Velani were not. They were warriors who lived to conquer and destroy. They took over peaceful worlds and turned the people into slaves. Their ships were covered in weapons and armor. They painted them red with the blood of their enemies. "Run a deep scan," Park ordered. "I want to know if anyone else heard this signal." Jamin worked at his station, sending out sensor sweeps across the nearby star systems. After a few minutes, he looked up with a grim face. "Captain, the nearest Galactic Council fleet is 2 weeks away. The Altarian Navy is even further. We're the only ones close enough to help." Park walked to the center of the bridge and stared at the main screen. Out there in the dark, innocent people were dying. The Korthak would not show mercy. They would kill the old and weak, take the young and strong as slaves, and burn everything else. "Sir," said engineer Dong-hyun Nam over the ship's communication system, "our engines can handle a maximum burn for 3 days, but we'll need major repairs afterward." Park thought about his orders. The TDF had sent them out here to protect human space, not to save aliens. But the Velani had never been enemies. They had traded with humans for 50 years, always fair and honest. "Bo-ram, send a message to Admiral Choi on the Unyielding Dawn. Tell her what we found, and send word to all TDF ships in this sector." "What should I tell them, sir?" Park looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He saw Bo-Ram with her young face full of hope. He saw Jae-min checking his weapons systems. He saw the faces of people who had signed up to protect others. "Tell them we're going to war," Park said. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Bo-Ram started typing, her fingers flying over the controls. Jae-min began calculating firing solutions. Dong-hyun started pushing the engines to maximum power. Park felt the ship change around him. The Iron Resolve was no longer just patrolling. It was hunting. The gentle hum of the engines became a growl. The lights on the bridge shifted from blue to red. Weapon systems that had been sleeping came online with deadly whispers. "Course laid in for Valen Prime," reported Navigator Tae-hyun Shin. "All stations report ready for combat," added Jae-min. Park sat down in his captain's chair. He had made his choice. In 3 days, they would arrive at Valen Prime. They might find a dead world. They might find a trap. They might find a Korthak. Fleet so big that the Iron Resolve would be destroyed in minutes. But they would go anyway, because someone had called for help, and humans answered when good people were in trouble. "Take us out," Park ordered. The Iron Resolve turned toward the distant star system and began to run. Behind them, other human ships were getting the same message. Admiral Choi was making her own choices about what to do. But Park didn't wait for orders from headquarters. The Vellani were dying right now. Every minute they waited meant more innocent. People would suffer. The Korthak thought they were safe because the humans were too far away. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral So-young Choi stood in the command center of the Unyielding Dawn, reading the message from Captain Park for the 3rd time. Around her, the massive ship hummed with activity. Officers moved between stations, checking reports and giving orders. The Unyielding Dawn was the biggest ship in the Terran Defense Fleet, built like a metal mountain that could fly through space. "Ma'am," said Communications Officer Wai-jin Park, "we're getting responses from 17 other ships in the sector. They all want to know what our orders are." So-young looked at the star map floating above the main table. Red dots showed where their ships were located. A blue dot marked Valen Prime, 3 days away at maximum speed. Between them and the Vellani homeworld was empty space, dark and cold. "What do we know about Korthak forces in that area?" she asked. Intelligence Officer Kyung-soo Han pulled up files on his screen. "The Korthak 7th Conquest Fleet was last seen near the Outer Rim. That's General Vextar's command. He's known for being brutal even by Korthak standards. His fleet has over 200 ships." So-young felt her stomach tighten. 17 human ships against 200 Korthak warships. The math was simple and ugly. But she had not become an admiral by avoiding hard choices. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we're responding to an alien distress call. We'll follow up with a full report when we can." She was buying time. By the time Earth Command could send new orders, the battle would be over. Either the Vellani would be saved, or the human fleet would be destroyed trying. "Ma'am," said Wei-jin, "Captain Park reports his ship is already at maximum burn. He's not waiting for the rest of us." So-young almost smiled. Park was a good officer, but he was also stubborn. Once he decided to help someone, nothing could stop him. "Signal all ships. We're going to Valen Prime. Maximum speed." Across the fleet, human ships began to move. The destroyers went first, their engines burning bright blue against the black of space. The cruisers followed, massive and powerful. Last came the unyielding dawn itself, moving like a metal whale through the cosmic ocean. On the engineering decks, Chief Engineer Dong Hyun Nam worked with his teams to push the engines beyond their normal limits. The fusion reactors that powered the ships ran hotter than they were designed for. Warning lights flashed in the engine rooms, but the engineers ignored them. "Sir," said technician Mi Young-yoon, "the engines will need major repairs after this. We're burning through our spare parts." Dong-hyun wiped sweat from his face. The engine room was hot and loud, filled with the sound of machinery working at its limits. "The Villani don't have time for us to be careful. Push everything to the red line." In space, the human ships moved faster than they ever had before. Their engines left trails of light behind them like shooting stars. Other ships in the area saw them pass and wondered what could make the humans move with such urgency. Meanwhile, on Velan Prime, the attack was getting worse. The peaceful cities that had stood for thousands of years were burning. Korthak soldiers walked through the streets, pulling Villani families from their homes. The aliens were gentle and could not fight back even to save their own lives. Zafira was a member of the Villani Council, one of the leaders of her people. She hid in a basement with 30 other survivors, listening to the sounds of destruction above. The Korthak had come without warning, dropping from the sky in black ships that blocked out the sun. "Why are they doing this to us?" whispered a young Villani mother, holding her child close. Zephyra had no answer. The Villani had never been warriors. They made art and music, grew beautiful gardens, and traded with anyone who wanted to be their friend. They had never attacked anyone or taken anything that was not freely given. Above them, Korthak General Vextar stood in his command ship, watching the planet burn. He was a large alien with gray skin covered in scars from many battles. His eyes were cold and yellow, like a predator looking at prey. "Status report," he growled at his officers. "Sir, we've secured 60% of the major cities. Resistance is minimal. The Villani won't fight back." Vexitar laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Of course they won't. They're weak. That's why they make good slaves." "What about their distress signal, General?" Vextar waved a clawed hand. "Let them call for help. The Galactic Council is too far away. The humans are even further. By the time anyone arrives, this world will be stripped clean and will be gone." He looked down at the beautiful planet below, with its purple oceans and silver cities. Soon it would be just another empty rock floating in space. The Korthak way was simple. Take everything useful, destroy everything else. Back in human space, the fleet continued its desperate race against time. In the medical bay of the cruiser Steadfast, Dr. Yoon Seo Lim prepared for the worst. She ordered her staff to ready surgical equipment and trauma supplies. She had treated human soldiers before, but she had never worked on aliens. "Doctor," asked Nurse Haewon Yu, "what are Villani physiology like? Will our medical equipment work on them?" Yoon Seo checked her computer files. "They're similar to humans in many ways. Carbon-based, red blood, standard organs, but they're much more fragile. What would be a minor wound for us could kill them." She looked around the medical bay, thinking about the injured aliens they might soon be treating. The Villani were known for being peaceful and kind. They didn't deserve what was happening to them. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Captain Park watched the stars stream past. His ship was running ahead of the main fleet, pushing its engines harder than was safe. But every hour they saved might mean more Villani lives. "Captain," said Boram Kim, "I'm picking up more signals from Velan Prime. They're getting weaker." Park's jaw tightened. The signals were getting weaker because there were fewer Villani left alive to send them. The Korthak were working fast, killing or capturing everyone they could find. "How long until we arrive?" he asked. 62 hours and 15 minutes, reported Navigator Tae-hyun Shin. Too long, Park thought. But it was the best they could do. The Iron Resolve was already pushing its engines to the breaking point. Any faster, and they might not arrive at all. Behind him, the rest of the human fleet followed. 17 ships carrying angry and determined crews. They had heard the Villani distress calls. They had seen the intelligence reports about Korthak brutality. They knew what they would find. When they arrived, Admiral Choi stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display. Red numbers showed their speed, their fuel consumption, their estimated arrival time. Everything was in the red zone, everything pushed to the limit. "Ma'am," said her aide, "some of the captains are worried about arriving without a plan. We don't know how many Korthak ships are waiting for us." So Young looked at the young officer. "Tell the captains not to worry about planning. When we get there, the plan is simple. We kill every Korthak ship we can find. We save every Villani we can reach. Everything else is just details." The human fleet raced through the dark toward a battle they might not win, to save people they had never met. Because it was the right thing to do. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velan system like ghosts appearing from the dark. 17 ships against the black of space, their engines still glowing from the hard burn that had brought them here. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, staring at what he saw on the main screen. Velen Prime hung in space like a wounded animal. The beautiful blue and purple planet was covered in smoke and fire. Cities that had glowed with gentle light for thousands of years were now dark or burning. Around the planet, Korthak ships moved like metal sharks, taking what they wanted and destroying the rest. "Count them," Park ordered. Tactical Officer Jae-min Lee worked at his station, the computer systems scanning the enemy fleet. The numbers that came back made everyone on the bridge go quiet. 217 Korthak ships, sir. Everything from small raiders to heavy battleships. And Jamin paused, checking his readings again. "They have at least 40 slave transports already full." Park felt sick. 40 ships full of captured Villani, being taken away to lives of slavery and suffering. He opened a communication channel to the rest of the human fleet. "All ships, this is Iron Resolve. You can see what we're facing. Anyone who wants to leave can go now. No shame in it." The responses came back immediately, one after another. Captain after captain saying the same thing in different words. "We're staying. Let's finish this. No retreat." On the Korthak command. "Ship." General Vextar was enjoying his victory. The Villani had been even easier to defeat than he had expected. Their cities had fallen without a fight. Their people had walked into the slave ships rather than see their children hurt. "General," said Communications Officer Nexus 7, "we're detecting new ships at the edge of the system. 17 vessels, unknown design." Vextar looked at the tactical display with mild interest. "Pirates, probably. Looking to pick up scraps after we're done. How big are they?" "Some are quite large, sir, but only 17 ships against our full fleet." Vextar laughed. "Signal them to stay back until we're finished here. If they cause trouble, destroy them." But when the communication went out, the response was not what he expected. Instead of begging for mercy or asking for permission to scavenge, the unknown ship sent back a message that chilled every Korthak who heard it. "This is Admiral So Young Choi of the Terran Defense Fleet. Any Korthak vessel that has participated in the attack on Velen Prime is marked for destruction. No surrender will be accepted. No quarter will be given. You have 30 seconds to prepare yourselves." Vextar stared at the communication screen. Terrans. The Deathworlders are here. He had heard stories about humans, but had never fought them. They came from a planet so dangerous that just living there had made them into natural warriors. General, should we form up for battle? Before Vextar could answer, the human ships attacked. Captain Tae-Hyun Shin commanded the destroyer Retribution, one of the smallest ships in the human fleet. But small did not mean weak. As soon as Admiral Choi finished speaking, he aimed his ship at the nearest group of Korthak raiders and opened fire. The Retribution's railgun spoke with voices like thunder. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through. Korthak shields like they were made of paper. The first raider exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The second tried to turn away, but the Retribution was faster. "Direct hit on target 2, reported Weapons Officer Sung Jin-oh. "Target destroyed." But Shin was not celebrating. He was already aiming at the next ship and the next. The human destroyers moved through the Korthak formation like wolves among sheep, their weapons cutting down everything in their path. Above them, the larger human ships engaged the Korthak battleships. The cruiser Steadfast, under Captain Minho Kang, found itself facing 3 Korthak heavy cruisers at once. The aliens expected an easy victory, but they had never fought ships built on a death world. "All batteries, fire at will," Captain Kang ordered. The Steadfast's main guns were massive, designed to crack asteroids and break through the heaviest armor. When they hit the lead Korthak cruiser, the alien ship simply came apart, torn into pieces by the force of the impact. The other 2 Korthak ships tried to run, but it was too late. The Steadfast's missile pods opened, sending dozens of seeking warheads after the fleeing aliens. The missiles caught them before they could escape, turning 2 more ships into expanding clouds of debris. In the middle of the battle, fighter pilot Hee-Jin Kang led her squadron of small attack craft through the chaos. The fighters were tiny compared to the big ships, but they were fast and deadly. Hae-Jin had grown up on Earth, where the gravity was so strong that it had made her reflexes faster than any alien could match. "Red Squadron, follow me in," she called over the radio. "Target the slave transports. We're getting those people out of there." Her fighters dove toward the Korthak slave ships like angry hornets. The transport vessels were big and slow, built to carry cargo, not to fight. Their escort ships tried to protect them, but the human fighters were too quick. Hye-Jin lined up her shot on the lead transport and fired. Her weapons were set to disable, not destroy. She wanted to save the Villani inside, not kill them. The transport's engines exploded, leaving the ship dead in space but intact. "Transport 1 is down," she reported. "Boarding teams can take it when they're ready." All around the battlefield, the same scene played out again and again. Korthak ships that had seemed unstoppable were being destroyed by smaller numbers of human vessels. The aliens had superior numbers, but the humans had superior everything else. On the Korthak command ship, General Vextar watched his fleet die and finally understood what he was facing. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not try to capture ships or take prisoners. They aimed for the crew compartments and life support systems. They wanted the Korthak dead, not defeated. "Sir, we've lost 60 ships already," reported his tactical officer. "Their weapons are cutting through our armor like it's not even there." Vextar had commanded the 7th Conquest Fleet for 20 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings, but he had never faced an enemy that fought with such cold fury. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Full retreat. Abandon the slave transports if necessary." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The human ships were everywhere, hunting down his vessels with deadly efficiency. The Deathworlders had come to Velan Prime for one reason: to kill every Korthak they could find. Admiral Choi stood on the bridge of the unyielding dawn, watching the battle unfold on her tactical display. Red dots representing Korthak ships were disappearing from the screen one by one. In less than an hour, her small fleet had destroyed more than half of the enemy force. "Ma'am," said Communications Officer Wai-Jin Park, "we're receiving surrender, requests from several Korthak ships." So Young's expression did not change. "Remind them what we said. No quarter given. Any ship that participated in the attack on this world dies here." The battle continued, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Korthak fleet was broken, its ships scattered and burning. Those that tried to run were hunted down by human destroyers. Those that tried to fight were destroyed by human cruisers. By the time the sun set on Velan Prime, the space around the planet was filled with the wreckage of Korthak ships. Of the 217 vessels that had attacked the peaceful world, fewer than 20 escaped, and those only because they ran at the first sign of trouble. The human fleet had won a victory that would be remembered across the galaxy. But for the crews of those 17 ships, the real work was just beginning. Down on the planet's surface, Volani survivors were waiting for rescue, and the humans meant to save everyone they could find. While the space battle ended with burning Korthak ships, the real rescue work was just beginning. Colonel In-Ho Yu stood in the drop pod bay of the unyielding Dawn, checking his equipment one last time. Around him, 200 human Marines, prepared for the most important mission of their lives. "Listen up," In-Ho called out to his troops. "The Korthak have been on this planet for 3 days. That means survivors are scared, hurt, and hiding. We go in fast, we find them, and we get them to safety. Anyone who sees a Korthak soldier shoots first and asks questions later." The Marines nodded. They had seen the reports from orbit. Cities burned to ash, slave processing centers where families had been torn apart, mass graves where the Korthak had dumped anyone too old or sick to be useful. The sight had made even hardened soldiers angry. Sergeant Yu-Jin An checked her squad's weapons and armor. She was small for a Marine, but she had grown up in the high gravity of Earth. What looked like heavy armor to aliens felt light to her. What seemed like impossible terrain to others was just another day on the job. "Drop pods ready," announced the Bay Chief. In-Ho gave the order, and 200 metal pods shot toward Velan Prime like falling stars. Each pod carried 4 Marines in full battle gear. They hit the planet's surface hard, their reinforced hulls designed to survive impacts that would kill ordinary ships. Eugene pod landed in the ruins of what had been a beautiful city. The Volani had built their homes to look like growing flowers, with curved walls and colors that changed with the light. Now those homes were broken and black with smoke. "Squad! Sound off!" she called as her team climbed out of their pod. "Kim, here. All good." Private Sung-Min-Oh was young but steady. He carried the squad's heavy medical kit, trained to help both humans and aliens. Bay reporting, ready to go. Corporal Hwan Jung Bay was their demolitions expert. If they needed to blow something up, he was the man for the job. Park ready. Private Ga-Yun Park was their sniper, carrying a rifle that could put a bullet through armor at 1,000 meters. Eugene looked around at the destroyed city. "Sensors are picking up life signs 2 blocks north. Let's move." They ran through streets filled with debris, past buildings that had collapsed, past artwork that would never be made again. The Volani had been artists and poets, creating beauty wherever they went. The Korthak had destroyed it all in hours. "Sergeant," Sheng Min called out. "I'm seeing movement ahead. Large group, non-hostile." Yu Jin raised her hand, and the squad stopped. Through the smoke she could see them. A group of Villani huddled in the ruins of what had been a school. Adults sheltered children with their own bodies. An elderly Villani male stood guard at the front, holding nothing but a walking stick. The aliens saw the humans coming and tried to hide. They had learned to fear anyone in armor, but Yu Jin slowly removed her helmet, showing her human face. "We're here to help," she called out in the common galactic language. "The Korthak are gone. You're safe now." The elderly Villani stepped forward. His purple skin was marked with cuts and bruises, but his large eyes still held hope. You are the humans? The ones who answered our call?" "That's right. How many survivors are here?" 43 adults, 19 children. The old alien's voice shook. "There were over 3,000 in this district before the attack." Yu Jin felt her stomach twist, but she kept her voice steady. "We're going to get you all to safety. My medic will check anyone who's hurt." Sheng Min moved forward with his medical kit. The Villani children were afraid at first, but he spoke softly and moved slowly. Soon he was treating their injuries while they watched with curious eyes. "They're beautiful people," he said quietly to Yu Jin. "Like living artwork. How could anyone want to hurt them?" Before she could answer, the sound of gunfire echoed from the next district. Another Marine squad had found Korthak soldiers who had stayed behind to finish looting. The battle was short and one-sided. The aliens who had been so brave against defenseless civilians ran when they faced armed humans. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human Marines found groups of survivors hiding in basements, in sewers, in the ruins of their homes. Each group was carefully gathered and moved to safe zones where ships could pick them up. Private HFY Ko found herself in a slave processing center on the other side of the planet. The Korthak had used it to sort captured Villani by age and health. The healthy ones went to the slave ships. The others went to mass graves. The center was empty now, but HFY could see signs of what had happened. Chains bolted to the walls. Cages sized for different ages. A computer system that listed Villani by their market value. "This is sick," she said into her radio. "They treated them like livestock." Her squad leader, Staff Sergeant Woo Jin Lee, studied the computer files. "Get this data downloaded. Command will want to see what the Korthak were planning." As they worked, they heard a sound from deeper in the building. Someone was crying, very softly. HFY followed the sound to a storage room. Inside, she found a young Villani female hiding behind some boxes. The alien was injured and terrified. "Hey there," HFY said gently, setting down her weapon. "It's okay. The bad guys are gone." The Villani looked up with tear-filled eyes. She was young, maybe 20 in human years. Her purple skin was pale with shock and fear. They took my family," she whispered. "My parents, my little brother. They put them on different ships." HFY knelt down beside her. "What's your name?" "Lyrelai." "Lyrelai, I'm HFY. I promise you, we're going to find your family." "Our ships are already tracking down those slave transports." It was true. In space, human fighters were pursuing the Korthak ships that had escaped with captured Villani. The slave transports were slow and could not fight back. One by one, they were being stopped and boarded. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon Seo Lim worked in a field hospital set up near the planet's main spaceport. Human medical teams had converted a large hangar into an emergency treatment center. Injured Villani were brought in by the dozens, and the doctor worked without rest to save them. "Doctor," called Nurse Haiwan Yu, "we have a critical case coming in. Young Villani male, severe burns." Yunseo looked up from the patient she was treating. A Villani child who had been hurt when a building collapsed. The medical scanners showed internal bleeding, but she was managing to fix it with surgery. "Put him in Bay 3. I'll be there in 5 minutes." The work never stopped. Broken bones from falling debris, burns from fires, cuts from sharp metal. But the worst injuries were not physical. Many of the Villani had seen their families killed or taken away. They sat in the hospital beds, staring at nothing, their minds broken by what they had experienced. "Can we help them?" asked one of the human medics. Yunseo looked around at the wounded aliens. "We can heal their bodies, their minds. That will take time. And each other." As the day continued, more and more survivors were found, hidden in underground tunnels, trapped in collapsed buildings. Some had been hiding for 3 days without food or water, but they had survived. Colonel In-ho walked through the rescued groups, talking to the survivors and getting reports from his Marines. The numbers were heartbreaking. Of the 3 million Villani who had lived on this world, fewer than 200,000 had survived. The rest were dead or captured, but those who lived would continue. The human ships were already bringing in supplies and medical equipment. Engineers were planning to rebuild the damaged cities. The Villani would have their world back, and it would be protected. "Sir," reported Sergeant Eugene, "we've secured the last sector. No more Korthak forces planetside." In-ho nodded. The ground campaign was over, but the memory of what they had found would stay with every human Marine for the rest of their lives. They had seen what evil looked like when it was allowed to run free. They had also seen what good people could do when they decided to fight back. As night fell on Valen Prime, human ships continued their rescue operations. In space, the last of the slave transports was being boarded. On the ground, survivors were being cared for by human medics. The Korthak attack was over, but the galaxy would remember what had happened here, and they would remember who had come to help when help was needed most. 1 week after the battle, Admiral So-Young Choi stood in the main cargo bay of the Unyielding Dawn, watching the last group of rescued Villani board a transport ship. The aliens moved slowly, still weak from their ordeal, but they were alive, and they were free. The final count was both a victory and a tragedy. The human fleet had rescued nearly 40,000 Villani from the slave ships and found another 160,000 survivors on the planet. But 2.5 million were gone forever, killed by the Korthak or lost when the slave ships that escaped were destroyed by their own crews rather than be captured. "Ma'am," said Communications Officer Wee Jin Park, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." So-Young had been expecting this. Earth's government would want to know why she had taken the fleet into battle without orders, why she had risked human lives for aliens they had never met, why she had started what might become a war with the Korthak Empire. "Put it through to my ready room," she said. But as she walked toward her private office, another message came in. This one was from the Galactic Council, the group of species that tried to keep peace in their part of the galaxy. "Admiral Choi," said the voice of Counselor Thessarian, the Villani representative, "I am speaking for all the surviving members of my people. We cannot find words to thank you for what you have done. You came to our aid when no one else could. You saved our children when we could not save ourselves. So Young stopped walking. Through the windows of the ship, she could see Velan Prime slowly healing. Human engineering teams were working with Volani survivors to rebuild the cities. Medical ships were treating the wounded. Supply vessels were bringing food and clean water. The second message was from the Altarian Defense Force. Admiral, this is General Corvin. The Council wants to know how 17 human ships destroyed a Korthak fleet of over 200 vessels. Our tactical experts say it should have been impossible. More messages followed. From the Centauri Republic, from the Free Traders Alliance, from species she had never heard of, all asking the same questions. How had the humans won such a complete victory? What kind of weapons did they have? What kind of training had produced such effective soldiers? But the most important message came from Earth itself. It was from Admiral Jinwoo Che, the head of the Terran Defense Fleet. So Young. His voice was serious but not angry. The President wants a full report on what happened at Velan Prime. But before you write that report, I want you to know something. Every human who has heard about this battle is proud of what you did. You upheld the best of what our species can be. In her ready room, So Young sat down at her desk and began writing her report. She described the distress signal, the decision to respond, the battle itself, and the rescue operations that followed. She did not try to justify her actions. She had made her choice, and she would accept whatever consequences came from it. But, as she wrote, she remembered the faces of the Volani children her Marines had saved. She remembered the grateful words of the survivors. She remembered the look in the eyes of her own crew when they realized they had done something that mattered. Meanwhile, on the planet below, Dr. Yoon Seo Lim continued her work in the field hospitals. The most serious cases had been moved to the human medical ships, but there were still hundreds of Volani who needed care. "Doctor," said a young Volani nurse named Zafira, "the human medical techniques are amazing. You saved people we thought were beyond help." Yoon Seo looked up from her patient charts. "Your people are stronger than you think. They just needed someone to believe in them." The Volani nurse was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that many of her people were asking. "Why did you come? You barely knew us. We had nothing to offer in return." "Because it was right," Yoon Seo said simply. "When someone calls for help, you answer if you can." Across the galaxy, news of the Battle of Velan Prime spread through hyperspace. Communications. The story grew with each telling. 17 human ships against 200 Korthak vessels. A complete victory with minimal human losses. An entire planet saved from slavery and destruction. In the Korthak Empire, the few survivors of the 7th Conquest Fleet told their story to shocked military leaders. General Vextar was dead, killed when his command ship was destroyed by human railgun fire. The other generals listened to the reports and felt something they had not experienced in decades: fear. The Deathworlders fought like demons, reported Captain Nexus Prime, one of the few Korthak officers to escape. Their weapons cut through our armor like it was paper. Their ships moved faster than anything we've ever seen. And they showed no mercy. The Korthak High Command held emergency meetings. For generations, they had conquered peaceful species without resistance. Now they had found a species that not only fought back, but fought back with terrifying effectiveness. "We need to avoid human space," advised military strategist Grex Hall, "until we understand their capabilities better." On Earth, the government struggled with what to do next. The victory at Velan Prime had made humanity famous across the galaxy. Some species saw them as heroes who protected the weak. Others saw them as dangerous warriors who should be feared. President Kim Young-sam held a meeting with his military advisors. "What are the implications of this battle?" he asked. Defense Minister An Jae-hyun looked at the reports from Valen Prime. "Sir, we've essentially announced to the galaxy that we will not tolerate attacks on peaceful species. That could make us a target for aggressive races like the Korthak. Or it could make aggressive races think twice before attacking anyone," suggested Foreign Minister Park Sung-hai. "If they know humans might respond, they might choose easier targets." The president looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the space lanes, protecting worlds they had never seen, for people they had never met. Send orders to the fleet, he decided. We will continue to respond to distress calls from peaceful species. If that makes us enemies, then we'll deal with our enemies when they come. Back at Valen Prime, the last of the human ships prepared to leave. The planet was stable now, with enough survivors to rebuild their civilization. The Galactic Council had promised to send peacekeeping forces to protect them while they recovered. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching the beautiful world turn slowly below them. In a few months, new cities would rise, where the old ones had been destroyed. Vellani artists would create new works of beauty to replace what had been lost. "Sir," said Bo-Ram Kim from the communication station, "we're receiving a message from the Vellani Council." The main screen showed Thessarian, the elderly Vellani who served as their leader. Behind him stood representatives of all the surviving communities, hundreds of purple-skinned faces looking at the human ship with gratitude. "Captain Park," Thessarian said, "you were the first to answer our call. When our world was darkest, you brought light. We will never forget what you and your people have done for us." Park felt uncomfortable with the praise, but he understood its importance. "We did what anyone should do when they hear someone calling for help." "No," Thessarian said gently. "You did what humans do. The galaxy is a safer place because your species exists." As the human fleet prepared to leave Velen Prime, messages continued to pour in from across the galaxy. Some were from species asking for human protection. Others were from military leaders wanting to understand human tactics. A few were from aggressive races making threats about what would happen if humans interfered with their conquests again. Admiral Choi read them all, but her response was always the same. The Terran Defense Fleet would continue to patrol. They would continue to respond to distress calls. They would continue to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Battle of Velen Prime was over, but its effects would last for generations. Across the galaxy, peaceful species looked up at the stars and felt a little safer, knowing that somewhere out there, humans were watching. An aggressive species looked at those same stars and wondered if their next conquest was worth the risk of facing the Deathworlders in battle. Humanity had drawn a line in space, written in the wreckage of Korthak ships, and sealed with the blood of those who would prey on the innocent. It was a line that said, "No further, not while we stand watch," and the galaxy would remember.